If you are watching this video, please press subscribe and leave a comment to tell me where you are watching from. California, Texas, or somewhere even farther away. I truly want to know, because this story may make you reflect on your own family. My name is Lauren Smith. I am 68 years old. I am a retired teacher living in Virginia Beach, and today I want to share a story that I never thought I would have to tell. Let me begin with the most peaceful years of my life. James Smith and I were married for 44 years. We met in Norfolk, Virginia when he was a civil engineer and I was teaching English at a local high school. Together we bought an old Victorian house. It had a steep roof and stained glass windows. We spent decades restoring every small corner of that house. We painted the walls. We replaced the wooden floors. We planted a rose garden behind the house. Everything was built with love and hard work. It was not just a house. It was our home. It was the place where we raised Ethan, our only son. It was the place where we imagined growing old together. James passed away 8 years ago because of heart disease. I kept the house exactly as it was. I continued to care for the rose garden that he loved, and I lived a simple life with my teacher pension and a small amount of savings. I never thought I would have to sell that house. But 3 years ago, around June 2023, Ethan and Sophia, my daughter-in-law, told me about their dream. They wanted a larger suburban house in Virginia Beach, a house closer to the ocean, a house with a backyard for the grandchildren they hoped to have one day. They had already found the perfect home, but they did not have enough money for the large down payment needed to qualify for a mortgage with a lower interest rate. I did not hesitate. I love my son, and I wanted him to be happy. I sold the Victorian house, the house that held my entire married life, and I gave them exactly $87,000. That was the largest amount of savings I had after the cost of selling the house and the taxes. They hugged me. They promised that I would always have a place in their new home, that I would always be part of their family. "You will never have to live alone again, Mom," Ethan said. Sophia smiled brightly. She said I would be the most wonderful grandmother their future child could ever have. I believed them. For the past 6 months, since around September 2025, I have been living in their guest room. I never called it my room, because they always reminded me that it was only a room for guests, and I accepted that. Quietly, I continued to help them in many ways. I paid the utility bills when they were short a few $100s at the end of the month. I slipped money to Sophia when we went to the supermarket because she said she had forgotten her wallet. I paid for Ethan's car repairs when it suddenly broke down. I even quietly paid part of their credit card bills when they spent too much on furniture or short vacations. In total, over the past 3 years, I gave them about $37,000 more. But I never mentioned that number. I believed I was doing the right thing as an American mother, supporting my children so they could have a better start. I was wrong. And that is why I am sitting here now in a small room at a Hampton Inn hotel telling you the whole truth. This story is not about revenge. It is about protecting yourself when the people you love the most make you feel as if you do not deserve to exist. If you are around my age or if you have elderly parents, please watch this video until the end, because sometimes love does not mean giving forever without asking for respect. And then just one day before the big wedding, the wedding I had funded for the most part, everything changed forever. The wedding was held at Princess Anne Country Club, a beautiful seaside venue in Virginia Beach. It was a place Sophia had dreamed about for a long time. I paid exactly $14,000 for the reception. That covered the fresh flowers, the photographer, the live band, and the seafood appetizers they loved. That morning I woke up early. I arranged every bouquet of white roses exactly the way Sophia had requested. In the afternoon, I ran back and forth handling the final details. I checked the tables and chairs. I called to confirm the schedule. I even sat and listened to Sophia complain for 2 full hours about everything. She complained that the weather might rain. She complained that the chef was not professional enough. I offered only one small suggestion. Maybe we do not need the swan ice sculptures. Saving a little money could be fine. That was the only negative thing I did that entire day. Late that night, I was cleaning the kitchen after the rehearsal dinner. Sophia walked in. Her white wedding dress was still hanging behind her on a special rack. The kitchen felt strangely quiet. The only sound was the low humming of the ventilation fan. Sophia stopped. She looked directly into my eyes. Then she said something I will never forget. "The best wedding gift you could ever give us, Lauren, is if you disappeared from our family forever." The words hit me like a hard slap. My heart pounded. My face felt hot. But strangely, I did not cry. I did not shout. I did not even shake. I simply stood there. She was smiling. That same plastic smile I had seen for 3 years. Ethan stood beside her. He nodded in agreement. He did not even look at me. Then he added in a cold voice, "Yeah, Mom, you just gave us some money once anyway. Some money once, that was all. $87,000. Every major saving I had after selling my Victorian house, reduced to that one empty phrase." I stood in the very kitchen where I had helped choose every piece of polished granite, every custom walnut cabinet. My money had made those things possible. I looked around the room, the island counter where I had cooked hundreds of family dinners, the refrigerator I quietly filled whenever they forgot to buy groceries. And in that moment I realized something cold and clear. They had convinced themselves that everything here belonged to them, that they deserved it all, and that I was simply an extra piece they could throw away. I did not shout. I did not beg. I answered softly. My voice was so calm that it surprised even me. "You're right. I should go." Sophia looked slightly surprised. She had probably expected tears, or apologies, maybe even a dramatic scene she could later tell her friends about. Lauren was being difficult again. But I gave her none of that. I simply said that I would pack my things, and I would leave within 1 hour. Ethan sighed with relief, as if a heavy burden had finally been lifted. "That's probably for the best, Mom. We can talk after the honeymoon when things settle down. Talk after the honeymoon." As if this were just a small argument about seating arrangements. I walked upstairs. I entered the room they always called the guest room. I folded each piece of clothing into my suitcase. My hands trembled slightly, but my mind felt strangely clear. Downstairs, I could hear them already talking about rearranging the space. Sophia wanted to turn the room into a yoga studio. Ethan suggested a home office. Neither of them said a single word of regret. Neither of them mentioned the woman who had sold her house, the woman who had given them money, the woman who had quietly supported them for 3 years so they could live this life. I stopped beside the photograph of James on the bedside table. He was smiling in the picture. His eyes were warm, just like they always were. I whispered to him, "I'm not going down without a fight, honey." And in that moment, I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I stood there in the kitchen, still holding the dish towel in my hand. I tried to keep my voice from shaking. The question came out naturally, strangely calm. "Where exactly am I supposed to go?" Sophia shrugged, as if I had just asked something obvious. She looked down at her freshly manicured nails. Her voice was light and careless. "I don't know. A hotel. Maybe your sister's place. Honestly, Lauren, I don't care where you go as long as you're not here tomorrow." Ethan cleared his throat and stepped in. His face was completely calm. "Actually, Mom, it's more Sophia's house now. She's the one handling all the finances and making the improvements. You just gave us some money once again. Some money once." That phrase felt like another knife cutting into an open wound. I looked at him. My son. The boy I once held in my arms. The child I raised, guided, and sacrificed everything for so he could have a better life. And now he stood there without hesitation, agreeing with those cruel words that were pushing me out. I did not cry. I did not shout. I did not beg. Maybe because in that moment a part of me had already gone numb. I simply nodded. "You're right. I should go." Sophia blinked. She was clearly surprised. She had probably prepared herself for a large argument. Tears, apologies, or at least a dramatic scene she could later tell her friends about. Lauren overreacted again, but I did not give her that chance. I only added, keeping my voice calm, "I will pack my things and be out of here within the hour." Ethan let out a quiet sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had finally been lifted. He even smiled slightly. "That's probably for the best, Mom. We can talk after the honeymoon once things settle down. Talk after the honeymoon." as if this were just a small disagreement about seating arrangements at the wedding, not the moment they had just pushed their own mother out of their lives one day before the ceremony. I turned around and walked toward the stairs. Each step felt heavy, yet strangely light at the same time. I entered the guest room. The room they always reminded me was only for guests, because guests eventually must leave. I opened my suitcase and began folding my clothes automatically. My hands trembled slightly, but I did not let the tears fall. Not now. Downstairs, their voices carried clearly through the house. Sophia sounded excited. "We could turn that room into a home yoga studio. I've always wanted one," Ethan laughed. "Or my home office. That would be perfect for working remotely." Not a single word of regret. Not one sentence like maybe we went too far. They spoke about the space as if I had never existed there, as if the past 6 months I had only been a temporary guest whose time had simply expired. I stopped when I saw the photograph of James on the bedside table. He was smiling in the picture. His eyes were warm, his silver hair shining under the Norfolk sunlight. We took that photograph in the rose garden, on our 40th wedding anniversary. He never once made me feel unwelcome in our own home. Never. I gently touched the frame and whispered, "I'm not going down without a fight, honey." And in that moment, something inside me truly changed. It was not breaking apart. It was a deep shift, like an old gear that had been stuck for years, finally locking into its proper place. I realized something important. A mother's love does not mean allowing others to walk over your dignity. I had given too much, for too long, and now they believed I would keep giving forever, even when they no longer needed me, except for my money. I closed the zipper of my suitcase. I stood up and looked around the room one last time. Then I walked out. I carried my luggage, and a determination I had never felt in all 68 years of my life. My friends, if you are still watching this video, maybe you have also felt betrayed by the people you love the most. I know how painful that feeling can be. But stay with me, because the next part of the story is where everything truly begins. The moment when I decided I would no longer remain silent. I pulled my suitcase out of the house without looking back even once. The door closed behind me with a soft click, but in my mind it sounded like thunder. I walked straight to my car. I threw the suitcase into the trunk, then sat in the driver's seat. The October night in Virginia Beach in the year 2025 was cool. The ocean wind moved across the car windows, carrying the smell of salt. I did not turn on the air conditioning. I did not turn on the radio. I simply sat there. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. I took several deep breaths, trying to calm myself. I knew I could not keep driving aimlessly, and I also knew that if I let everything end like this, I would regret it for the rest of my life. So I took out my phone. I dialed the emergency number that Elena Kim, my lawyer, had insisted I save separately. Elena is a Korean-American woman in her early 50s, sharp-minded, direct, efficient. She has handled all my legal paperwork since the day James passed away. More than once, she warned me about the money I gave to Ethan and Sophia. "Lauren, never think family loyalty is insurance. Protect yourself first." The phone rang twice before Elena answered. Her voice sounded slightly sleepy but still alert. "Lauren, it is Saturday night. What happened?" I told her everything. I did not leave out a single detail. Sophia's cold words, Ethan agreeing with her, the way they reduced $87,000 to the phrase, "some money once." My voice trembled when I described the moment they told me to disappear from their family forever. Elena listened quietly. Every now and then she murmured softly. I could clearly hear the sound of her typing quickly on her keyboard. When I finished speaking, Elena said in a low but steady voice, "Lauren, I have been worried about this for months. They treat your investment as if it were an unconditional gift. But legally, that is not the case." I swallowed. "What do you mean?" There was a short pause. Then Elena answered, "Do you remember the additional documents I insisted you sign after you told me you were worried about Sophia's spending habits?" she continued. "That $87,000 was not recorded as a gift. Legally, it was structured as a loan, and your name is listed on the property deed as a co-owner." She added, "Sophia never signed the confirmation documents I sent her. She kept forgetting. Under Virginia law, you legally own 35% of that house. I almost dropped the phone. My heart pounded loudly. My ears rang. 35%, not 0%, not some money once, 35%. Real ownership, legal ownership, documented ownership. Are you serious? I whispered. Completely serious, Elena replied. The mortgage company still lists you as a co-borrower. The property deed clearly states your ownership share. Everything is legal and binding. They may forget to sign things, but the law does not forget. I looked toward the house through the car window. The kitchen light was still on. Through the window, I saw Sophia standing there with her phone. She was laughing loudly, moving her arms dramatically as she showed off her wedding dress on FaceTime. Most likely she was talking to her mother in California. Ethan stepped into view. He was holding a bottle of champagne. He filled 2 glasses. They raised their glasses together and laughed. They looked relieved, as if the greatest burden in their lives had just been lifted. They were celebrating their freedom from me, the mother who had given them everything. Anger rose inside me, but it was not blind anger. It was sharp, clear, focused. I gripped the phone firmly. My voice no longer trembled. Elena, what if I want to sell my share? Elena answered immediately. As a co-owner, you have the legal right to request the sale of the property. They have the first right to buy your share at the current market value. If they cannot afford to buy it, the house will be placed on the open market. The proceeds will be divided according to ownership. 35% to you, 65% to them. I took a long, deep breath. Prepare a notice of intent to force sale for me. I want it sent first thing Monday morning. Elena paused for a second as if she wanted to be certain. Lauren, are you sure? Once this process begins, it will not be easy to turn back. I have never been more certain in my life. I ended the call and sat quietly in the car. Darkness slowly settled around me. Through the kitchen window, I could still see them. My son and my daughter-in-law. They raised their glasses again, celebrating a future without me. They had no idea that in less than 48 hours, their perfect little world was about to collapse. But first, there was one more thing I needed to do. I sat in the car for a few more minutes. I watched the kitchen lights slowly fade into the darkness. My heart was still beating fast, but it was no longer pain. Now it felt like a strange new energy. As if someone had finally unlocked the cage I had kept myself in for the past 3 years. I knew I had to act immediately. Before they realized what was happening, before they tried to repair everything with fake apologies. And the first thing that came to my mind was the wedding reception, the part I had paid for, the part I had signed the contract for, and now the part I had the right to decide about. I opened my phone and searched for the number of Sunset Gardens Country Club. It was the most Sunset Gardens Country Club. This is Jessica Torres speaking. Hello, Jessica. This is Lauren Smith. I need to speak with the wedding event manager about tomorrow's reception. Jessica recognized my voice immediately. Her tone sounded cheerful, mixed with a little surprise. Oh, Mrs. Smith, it is wonderful to hear from you. The wedding tomorrow, right? Everything is already prepared. Do you need to adjust anything? I took a deep breath. I am afraid there has been a major change of plans. I need to cancel the entire reception. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Then Jessica spoke again. Her voice sounded slightly alarmed. Cancel. But ma'am, there are less than 24 hours left. The food has already been prepared. The staff schedules are arranged. The fresh flowers are already set up. This is a large event with 200 guests. I understand that. And I am willing to pay any cancellation fees required in the contract. But the contract is under my name. The deposit was paid with my credit card. I believe I have the right to make this change. I could hear papers moving as Jessica quickly checked the documents. Yes, that is correct. The contract is under the name Lauren Smith, and the credit card also belongs to you. But are you sure you do not want to discuss this with the bride and groom first? This is their big day. I looked at the house one last time. Through the kitchen window, Sophia was still laughing loudly on FaceTime. Ethan stood beside her holding a glass of champagne. They looked like people who had just won a major victory. I gave a bitter smile. That will not be necessary, Jessica. The happy couple has made it very clear that my presence in their lives is no longer welcome. so I am simply respecting their wishes. Jessica was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice sounded softer, as if she understood at least part of the situation. I understand. I will process the cancellation immediately. Would you like me to send the cancellation invoice to a specific address? Please send it to the Hampton Inn. I will check in tonight. I will cover any inconvenience. After I ended the call, I started the car. I drove straight to the Hampton Inn on the other side of the city. The coastal road was dark. Only street lights and the distant sound of waves accompanied the drive. I checked in quickly and pulled my suitcase into the room. It was a simple, clean room. The window looked out over the dark ocean. I placed the suitcase down and ordered room service. A Caesar salad and a glass of red wine. Not to celebrate, just to sit quietly and breathe. When the food arrived, I sat beside the window and looked out at the sea. For the first time in many years, I felt something I had almost forgotten, the quiet satisfaction of controlling my own life. I no longer had to worry about whether they were happy. I no longer had to swallow my anger to keep the peace. I no longer had to pretend everything was fine when I was actually being used. I lifted the glass of wine and took a small sip. Then I whispered to myself, this is what freedom feels like. Not freedom from family, but freedom from letting other people decide my worth. My friends, at that moment, I was still hurting. It hurt to know that my own son could turn his back on me so easily, but at the same time, I felt stronger than I had ever felt before. I had begun to take back control, one step at a time. And I knew this was only the beginning. I sat by the hotel window looking out at the dark ocean. The glass of red wine in my hand was still half full. The feeling of freedom that had just begun to grow inside me had not even warmed yet when my phone started vibrating violently. The screen showed the time, 11:47 p.m. The caller's name, Sophia. I took a deep breath and answered. Her voice was sharp, almost shouting into the phone. What the hell did you do, Lauren? The country club just called. They said you canceled our wedding reception. I kept my voice calm. I even muted the television so I could hear clearly. I'm just honoring your request, Sophia. You wanted me to disappear from your family, so I disappeared. She was breathing hard as if she could not believe what she was hearing. There are 200 people expecting dinner tomorrow. My family flew in from California. How could you do this to us? Ethan grabbed the phone. His voice trembled with anger and panic. Mom, this is insane. You can't just cancel our wedding because you're upset about sleeping arrangements. I smiled bitterly, even though he could not see me. I didn't cancel your wedding, Ethan. You can still get married. I only canceled the reception I was paying for. The one that cost me $14,000. Silence. A long, heavy silence. I had never mentioned that number before. Whenever they asked about money, I always avoided the topic. I wanted to be the generous mother, the one who quietly paid so they could enjoy everything without thinking about the sacrifices behind it. But now the number was spoken out loud, clear, cold. Sophia's voice became weak, almost a whisper. The reception, the flowers, the photographer, the band. You thought all of that was free. You thought money just appeared because we wanted a fairy tale wedding, I answered, still calm but sharper now. No, sweetheart, I paid for it. Every dollar. And now, since I'm no longer welcome in your family, I decided to stop paying for things that don't include me. Ethan interrupted quickly, his voice almost begging. But we can't tell 200 people there is no reception. Mom, please, call them back. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I repeated, my voice rising slightly. No, it was a very clear business decision made by the person who was paying the bill. You two are resourceful adults. I'm sure you will figure something out. I hear McDonald's offers catering now. Sophia began to cry. Ugly, desperate sobs. 6 months ago, that sound might have softened my heart. I would have rushed to comfort her. Now, it sounded like the same emotional storms she always created whenever things did not go her way. How could you do this to us? We trusted you. Trusted me, I replied, colder than ever. You literally told me to disappear from your family forever. I'm simply complying with your request. Sophia groaned in frustration. I didn't mean forever. I just meant for the weekend. Ah, I see. I paused for a moment so the words could settle. So I was supposed to read your mind. When you said permanently, you actually meant temporarily. My mistake. Ethan tried a different approach. His voice softened, almost pleading. Mom, please, come back to the house. Let's talk this out like adults. Back to the house where I'm no longer welcome, where my presence ruins everything. I shook my head even though he could not see it. I don't think so. They began whispering in panic on the other end of the call. I could hear Sophia crying while Ethan tried to calm her. Then she grabbed the phone again. Her voice became sharp and accusing. You're being vindictive and cruel. No, Sophia, I said calmly, my voice sharp as a blade. Vindictive and cruel was telling the woman who paid for your dream wedding to disappear from your family. I'm just being financially responsible. Ethan cut in again. But what about our guests? What about my in-laws who flew across the country? They can still watch you get married, I said. They just will not get a free dinner afterward. Silence again. Then I decided to say something I had kept quiet for far too long. And by the way, since we are being honest, without my financial support, the two of you are probably going to be broke very soon. That is another conversation we should have. Ethan sounded alarmed. What do you mean? I mean this. Have you looked at your household budget lately? Do you know how much you spend every month compared to what you actually earn? The whispering became more frantic. I continued, my voice calm but heavy. For the past 3 years, I have quietly covered the gaps. The grocery money I slipped to Sophia when we shopped together. The utility bills I paid online when you were always short. The car repairs. The insurance payments. All the little emergencies that kept appearing. Sophia stammered. Those were gifts. Were they, I asked? Because from where I'm sitting, they look more like an allowance. And allowances can be discontinued at any time. Dead silence. I could hear their breathing through the phone. Finally, Ethan spoke again. His voice was small and desperate. What do you want, Mom? Interesting. Just a few hours earlier, they wanted me gone as quickly as possible. Now they were negotiating. I want exactly what you asked for, I said. To disappear from your family permanently. And when I leave, I am taking my money with me. I ended the call before they could say anything else. The phone slipped onto the bed. I sat there looking out at the dark ocean. Finally, the tears began to fall. Not from pain, from a deep sadness mixed with a strange sense of release. I had given them too much, and they had taken away my dignity. But tonight I had begun to take it back. My friends, in that moment, I felt both lonely and strangely strong. Lonely because my own son had changed so quickly. Strong because I had finally dared to say, enough. If you have ever faced emotional manipulation from your own family, you may understand this feeling. Stay with me. The next part will be even more dramatic when they begin to realize the real consequences. If this story touches you, please press like, leave a comment below, and subscribe so you do not miss the next part. I need to know that I am not alone on this journey. Thank you for listening. I will see you again soon. Sunday morning. Around 9 o'clock, I was sitting at the small table in the hotel room, slowly sipping black coffee from the machine and flipping through the local newspaper. A knock sounded on the door, light but rapid, the kind of knock from someone trying to hold back panic. I looked through the peephole. Ethan was standing there. His tuxedo shirt was wrinkled. His hair was messy. His eyes were red like he had not slept all night. I opened the door, but I did not invite him in. I simply stood in the doorway, blocking the entrance, looking at my son. A 44-year-old man I once held in my arms. A man I sacrificed everything for so he could have a better life. Mom, please. We need to talk. His voice was hoarse, desperate. I did not move. Shouldn't you be getting ready for your big day? Ethan lowered his head. His hands tightened around his phone. That's exactly what I need to talk about. Sophia's having a complete breakdown. She locked herself in the bathroom and will not come out. Her mother is threatening to fly back to California right now. The whole thing is falling apart. I looked at him. A wave of emotion rose inside me. Part of it was sympathy, but a larger part was a new cold clarity I had never felt before. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you two work it out. Work it out, Ethan suddenly looked up. His voice exploded with frustration. Mom, you destroyed our wedding. I shook my head slightly. No, son. I withdrew my financial support from your wedding. There is a difference. He pushed past me and walked into the room without waiting for an invitation. I let him. Sometimes you have to let people hang themselves with their own words. Ethan dropped heavily into a chair and buried his face in his hands. This is insane. Over what? A misunderstanding about sleeping arrangements. I stood there, looking down at my son. My voice was calm but sharp. Sit properly, Ethan. This is not about sleeping arrangements. This is about respect, about gratitude, about treating the person who made your entire lifestyle possible like a human being, not an inconvenience. He looked up again. His eyes were red. We have always treated you well, Mom. Really, I asked. My voice rose slightly. When was the last time you asked about my life, my interests, how I am feeling? When was the last time you invited me somewhere just because you wanted my company? Not because you needed me to watch the house, bring food, or write a check, Ethan. Opened his mouth, then closed it again. Silence stretched between us. Heavy, uncomfortable. I will wait. He lowered his head even further. His voice became quiet. I don't know. When was the last time you called just to check on me? When was the last time you remembered my birthday without Facebook reminding you? When was the last time you treated me like your mother instead of a personal bank? Ethan's voice trembled. That's not fair, Mom. Not fair, I repeated. My voice turned colder. In the past year alone, how much money do you think I gave you? And Sophia, I don't know. A few thousand here and there for emergencies. $37,000. $37,000 for emergencies and little help. Add the $87,000 house down payment. And that makes $124,000, Ethan. More than many people earn in 2 years. His face turned pale. His hands shook. We were always planning to pay you back. Really, I said, doubt filling my voice. Because Sophia is shopping for a new car. You are looking at European vacation packages. Neither of you has mentioned paying me back even once. Ethan buried his head in his hands again. His shoulders began to shake. For the first time in many years, I saw my son cry. Not from anger, from realizing the consequences. What do you want from me, Mom? I sat down across from him and leaned forward so he had to look directly into my eyes. I want you to understand that I am not your personal ATM. I want you to understand that kindness and generosity are not infinite resources. And I want you to understand that when you treat someone badly for long enough, eventually they stop caring about your problems. He looked up, his voice breaking. So you are punishing us by ruining our wedding day. That sentence, the idea that setting boundaries was punishment, felt like the final knife. I shook my head slowly. No, Ethan. I am protecting myself by ending the pattern of financial abuse. Financial abuse, that's ridiculous, is it? I replied calmly. You two conditioned me to believe my only value in this family was money. You trained me to accept crumbs of affection in exchange for major financial support. You made me feel guilty for having needs while you took everything for granted. I paused, letting the words sink in. Then I continued, my voice lower but sharper. Yesterday, Sophia told me the best gift I could give your family was to disappear permanently, and you agreed with her. After everything I have done, after everything I have sacrificed, you agreed that I should disappear. Ethan shook his head quickly. She did not mean it. Yes, she did. And so did you, I smiled. It was not a kind smile. And you know what? You are going to get exactly what you asked for. He stared at me, confused. What does that mean? It means you had better figure out how to pay for your own lifestyle from now on. It means you had better hope Sophia's parents are feeling generous. And it means you had better start looking at apartments. Because the house situation is about to get very complicated. Ethan frowned. What are you talking about? I am talking about the legal documents you never bothered to read before we helped with that down payment. The ones that make me a co-owner of your precious house. His face went completely white. You cannot own part of our house. We bought it. We live there with your $87,000 down payment. Yes. Did you think that money simply disappeared into thin air? But you said it was a gift. You said you wanted to help us get started. I took out my phone and opened the email from Elena last night. Apparently my lawyer had different ideas about protecting my investment. Would you like me to read the relevant parts? Ethan shook his head. His voice trembled. This is impossible. Sophia would have had to sign something. She was supposed to. She kept forgetting. Elena kept the paperwork on file anyway. He began to shake. Whether from anger or fear, I could not tell. You planned this. You have been planning this the whole time. Oh, sweetheart, I said gently, though my voice was cold. If I had been planning this, do you not think I would have done it before paying for your wedding? I spent $14,000 on a wedding for people who told me to disappear. If I were scheming, I would have pulled the plug months ago. Ethan sat there with his head lowered. His voice was barely audible. So what happens now? Now you have a choice. You can buy out my 35% share at the current market value, which is around $147,000. Or we sell the house and split the proceeds. He looked shocked. We cannot afford to buy you out. The house is worth about $420,000 now. 35% of that is over $147,000. I know. I am good at math. That is why I still have money, and you two are always broke. Ethan flinched. We are not broke. We just have a lot of expenses. Ethan, I said firmly, your combined household income is $8,000 a month. The mortgage alone is $2,400. Add car payments, credit cards, utilities, groceries, and Sophia's shopping habits. You are spending more than you earn every single month. And for the past 3 years, I have been quietly covering the difference. He stared at me, his eyes wide. How do you know all that? Because I have been the one paying for it. Did you think money simply appeared under your pillow like the tooth fairy? The hotel phone rang. I picked it up, still looking at Ethan. Mrs. Smith, this is Jessica from Sunset Gardens. I have the bride's mother on another line. She is asking about restoring the reception today. She says she will pay the full cost if the event can continue. I looked at Ethan. Hope flickered desperately in his eyes. I smiled slightly. That is very generous of her, Jessica. But I am afraid that will not be possible. Mom, please, Ethan whispered. I raised my hand for silence. You see, Jessica, there are some family dynamics here that make it inappropriate for me to accept payment from other family members for an event I chose to cancel. Jessica understood immediately. I understand. I will inform her that the cancellation remains. Should we send the final bill to this hotel? Yes, please. I will settle everything. After hanging up, I turned back to Ethan. Sophia's mother was willing to pay $14,000 to save your reception. She has been planning this wedding for months. She invited half her country club. How nice for her. Too bad her daughter could not manage to be polite to the person who was originally paying for everything. Ethan pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking. I need to call Sophia. We need to figure out what to do about the house. Go ahead. But Ethan, when you talk to your wife about our new arrangement, make sure she understands something. He looked up. What I am not the same woman who walked out of your house last night. That woman was desperate to keep peace in the family at any cost. This woman is done being taken advantage of. Ethan stood up. His face was pale. He left without another word. Perhaps he was carrying the worst news of his life back to Sophia. On the very day that was supposed to be the happiest day of theirs, I closed the door, sat on the bed, and for the first time since last night, I let the tears fall freely. Not because of regret, but because of grief for what had been lost, and because of the strange relief that comes when you finally stand up for yourself. My friends, that moment truly changed me. I am no longer the mother who will sacrifice everything. I am a 68-year-old woman who deserves respect. If you have ever had to fight to reclaim your own worth, you understand this feeling. Ethan left the hotel room without saying another word. He left behind a heavy silence. I closed the door and sat down on the bed. My hand was still gripping my phone tightly. Tears rolled slowly down my cheeks. But this time they were not tears of pain. They came from a deep sadness mixed with a strange sense of relief. I had said what needed to be said, and now I only wanted a little quiet so I could breathe. But the quiet did not last long. My phone kept vibrating all day on Sunday. Missed calls, messages, voicemails. I did not answer. I did not respond. I knew they were panicking. They were trying to pull me back no matter the cost. And I was right. Around 8 o'clock that evening, an unknown number called. I answered carefully. Hello, is this Mrs. Lauren Smith? This is Detective Carlos Ramirez from the Virginia Beach Police Department. We received a report regarding possible elder financial abuse and possible cognitive decline. The reporting party requested that we conduct a welfare check to ensure your safety. My heart began pounding. Manipulative snakes. They had not only turned their backs on me, now they were using the legal system itself to attack me. They were trying to turn me into a mentally incapable woman simply because I dared to say no. I took a deep breath and kept my voice calm. Detective Ramirez, I am completely clear-minded and currently staying alone at a hotel. I can assure you that I am not being financially abused. In fact, the situation is quite the opposite. He paused for a moment. His voice remained professional and polite. I understand, ma'am. However, we are required to follow up on all reports. Would you be able to meet with me at the station tomorrow morning, around 9 o'clock, just to verify the situation and close the case? Of course. In fact, I also have many things I would like to share with you about the real type of financial abuse that is happening here. I ended the call and sat quietly in the darkness of the hotel room. Anger rose inside me, but this time it was not chaotic anger. It was calm, sharp, clear. They thought they could use the police to scare me into coming back. They were wrong. On Monday morning, exactly at 9 o'clock, I arrived at the Virginia Beach police station. I wore a light jacket and carried a bag filled with documents, bank statements, emails from Elena Kim, voicemails and text messages from Sophia. Detective Carlos Ramirez was younger than I expected, about 42 years old, Hispanic, with intelligent eyes and the patient attitude of someone used to handling family disputes. We sat in a small room with a wooden table and 2 chairs. He began. Mrs. Smith, the reporting party appears to be very concerned about your safety and mental well-being. They suggested that you might be experiencing financial exploitation and possible cognitive decline. I gave a small smile. I am sure they are very concerned, when that concern benefits them. My daughter-in-law is very good at appearing caring when it is convenient. I spread the bank statements across the table. Over the past 3 years, I have given my son and his wife a total of $124,000. That includes $87,000 for the house down payment and $37,000 for various emergencies such as utilities, car repairs, credit cards, and shopping. Every dollar came from my account. Would you like to see? Detective Ramirez raised his eyebrows and flipped through the papers. That is a significant amount of money. And yesterday, when you set boundaries, they reported that you had lost mental capacity. That is correct. I took out my phone and played the voicemail Sophia left at 3 o'clock in the morning. Lauren, this behavior is insane. A normal person does not destroy their family's life just because their feelings are hurt. We are worried about you. Maybe you need to see someone. Get help. Ethan thinks you might be having some kind of breakdown. The detective listened carefully and wrote notes. Do you have any history of cognitive problems, Mrs. Smith? None at all. I manage my own finances. I drive myself. I take care of my own home and life. The only thing that has changed is that I stopped allowing them to take advantage of me. I handed him additional documents from Elena. My lawyer can confirm that I am the legal co-owner of 35% of their house. Everything I have done, from canceling the wedding reception to preparing to request the sale of the house, is within my legal rights. I am protecting my assets and ending financial support for people who told me to disappear from their lives. We spoke for about 20 more minutes. Detective Ramirez was thorough. He asked detailed questions and carefully examined the documents. At the end of the meeting, he nodded. Mrs. Smith, I will close this case as unfounded. You are clearly mentally capable, financially aware, and acting within your legal rights. However, I would like to provide you with information about support resources for victims of elder financial abuse, just in case you ever need them. I smiled. Thank you, Detective. But I believe I already have the situation quite under control. When I drove away from the station, I felt a new kind of strength. They had tried to use the police to intimidate me, but now they were the ones who should be worried. I had turned their attack into evidence against them. My friends, that moment truly became a turning point for me. I was no longer the easily manipulated mother. I was a woman who knew how to protect herself, and I would never allow anyone to take away my dignity again. After Carlos Ramirez closed the case and confirmed that I was completely clear-minded, I drove back to the hotel with a strange sense of relief. Not because I had won, but because for the first time I could see the situation clearly. They had used every trick they could think of to pull me back, and now they were the ones who were panicking. I knew the battle was not over. They had simply moved into a more desperate phase. On Monday afternoon, I was sitting in the small hotel restaurant. I was eating a late salad and trying to calm myself when a woman walked in. Her silver hair was perfectly styled. Her clothes were elegant in the polished style of wealthy California women. Her eyes were sharp but tired. She looked around the room, then walked straight toward my table. "Excuse me, are you Lauren Smith?" I looked up and recognized her immediately. "Victoria Langford, Sophia's mother." "I'm Victoria, Sophia's mother. May I sit down?" I nodded and gestured to the chair across from me. She sat with the graceful composure of someone who had spent decades handling social crises. A waiter brought her coffee, and for a moment we sat in silence like two strangers searching for the right opening words. Finally, Victoria spoke. Her voice was low and sincere. "I came here to thank you." I raised an eyebrow in surprise. She continued, "Thank you for showing my daughter who she really is. I have been worried about Sophia for years. The entitlement, the way she treats people she believes are beneath her, the complete lack of gratitude. I kept hoping marriage would change her, mature her. But seeing how she treated you, the woman who made her entire lifestyle possible, I am horrified." I listened without interrupting. Victoria took a sip of coffee and continued, "I offered to pay for the reception not because I support what she did, but because I felt responsible for the 200 guests who were inconvenienced. But you were right to refuse. My daughter needed real consequences, the kind that cannot be fixed with money or connections." She paused and looked directly into my eyes. She called me hysterical about the house situation. She demanded that I lend them money so they could buy out your share. I told her absolutely not. If she wants to own a home, she should have treated the co-owner with respect. For the first time that day, I smiled. A woman after my own heart. Victoria reached into her purse and placed a check on the table. "Sophia asked me to give you this. $25,000. A good faith payment toward buying out your share. It comes from Richard's life insurance policy. Money I had saved as her inheritance." I looked at the check but did not touch it. Victoria continued, "I told her I will not be her enabler anymore. Giving her this would only repeat the same pattern. When Sophia was 16, she totaled her car while driving drunk. Instead of letting her face the consequences, Richard hired the best lawyer money could buy and got the charges dismissed. Every tantrum rewarded, every failure blamed on someone else. I have watched her become someone I barely recognize, and I finally understand something. More money will not fix this." She picked up the check and tore it in half right in front of me. The sound of paper ripping was sharp and final. "Money Sophia has not earned and does not deserve. Whatever you decide about the house, Lauren, you have my support. Even if it means they lose their home. Especially then. Maybe starting over will teach her what work and gratitude actually mean." Victoria stood up and placed her business card on the table. "I'm flying back to California tomorrow. If you ever want to talk to someone who knows what it is like to love an ungrateful child, call me." She left. I remained there, staring at the torn check and feeling a strange sense of connection. I was not alone in this pain. And for the first time, I saw something clearly. I had also been part of the problem. Every time I wrote a check to rescue them, I taught them that someone would always catch them when they fell. 2 days later, we met at the office of Elena Kim. The office was a neutral space, filled with dark wood and leather-bound books. Ethan Smith and Sophia Langford arrived 15 minutes late. They looked like they had been arguing in the car. Sophia's eyes were swollen. Her usual makeup was completely gone. Ethan looked pale and clutched a stack of papers. Sophia spoke first as soon as she sat down. "Lauren, I owe you an enormous apology. I was stressed and overwhelmed with the wedding, and I said things I did not mean. Thank you. That is a start." She looked surprised. She had probably expected instant forgiveness. Elena spread the house documents across the conference table. "Let's review the facts." Lauren provided $87,000 for the down payment. The mortgage lists her as a co-borrower. The deed shows her ownership at 35%. Sophia never signed the acknowledgement forms. I sent them 3 times. Ethan flipped through the documents. We had no idea about the ownership share. You would have if Sophia had signed, Elena replied calmly. Sophia stammered. I was busy planning the wedding for 3 years. Elena raised an eyebrow. Busy for 3 years. Right. I let them sit with that discomfort for a moment. Then I spoke. The question now is how we move forward. I have a proposal. Both of them leaned forward, full of hope. Option 1. You buy out my 35% share at the current market value, approximately $147,000. Sophia's face turned pale. We do not have that kind of money. Option 2. We put the house on the market and split the proceeds according to ownership. After fees, you would receive about $273,000. My share would be about $95,550. Your share would be about $177,450. Enough for a decent apartment or a smaller house in a neighborhood you can actually afford. Ethan ran his hand through his hair. Is there any way we could arrange a payment plan, monthly payments until we buy you out? I had been waiting for that question. At what interest rate? With what collateral? You have already proven that you do not honor financial agreements. You still owe me $37,000 in emergency loans you never intended to repay. Why should I trust you with another $147,000? Sophia started crying. This is going to destroy our lives. No, Sophia. This is going to force you to live within your means for the first time in your adult life. Elena spoke up. I need to advise you that Lauren has every legal right to force the sale of the property. The options she is offering are already very generous. Then I gave my final offer. Here is my proposal. You may buy out my share for $75,000, well below market value. But there are conditions. They both leaned forward again. First, Sophia must get a job within 60 days and keep it for at least 2 years. Second, you must sell one of your cars and use the money to reduce your debt. Third, you must follow a realistic budget for 2 years. No restaurant meals, no unnecessary shopping, no new debt. I paused. Every month you will meet with Elena. You will provide bank statements, credit reports, and proof of income. If you violate any condition, the full amount becomes due immediately. Sophia shook her head slowly. That sounds like financial prison. No, that is called accountability for your choices. They asked for a moment to talk privately. While they whispered in the hallway, Elena turned to me. This is either very generous or very cruel. I cannot decide which, maybe both. When they came back into the room, Ethan spoke for both of them. We accept all of it. Sophia nodded slowly as if swallowing poison. All of it. Elena began drafting the agreement. When the paperwork was finished, I watched my son and my daughter-in-law sign their names. They were signing away their financial freedom for the next 2 years. Part of me felt victorious. Part of me felt sad that it had come to this. But more than anything, I felt that I had finally taught them the lesson their parents should have taught them long ago. Actions have consequences. And family is not a free pass to treat people badly. My friends, the moment they signed those papers was the true climax of this story. I was no longer the mother who could be taken advantage of. I was a woman who knew how to set boundaries, and I would never allow anyone to cross those boundaries again. 6 months passed faster than I expected. Now it is April 2026. I am sitting in my cozy 2-bedroom apartment in a senior community in Virginia Beach. The place has an outdoor pool, walking paths along a small lake, and community gardens where I have already signed up to plant flowers this spring. Every morning I wake up to the sound of birds singing and the smell of fresh coffee. I no longer worry about whether I will disappoint someone today. I joined a weekly book club. People debate novels with passion, laugh about fictional characters, and for the first time in a long while I feel truly heard. Not because of the balance in my bank account, but simply because my opinion matters. One late afternoon, my phone vibrates. The caller name on the screen, Sophia. I answer calmly. Hello, Lauren. It's Sophia. I got the promotion. Office manager at the dental clinic. Her voice is different now. It is no longer sharp or pleading like before. It sounds tired but honest. I smile softly. That's wonderful, Sophia. How do you feel? Exhausted, she laughs. It is a real laugh, not forced, but also proud. I never knew I was good at organizing things, keeping schedules straight, dealing with patients. It's hard work. But for the first time, the money in my paycheck feels like it's mine. I listen and something warm spreads through my chest. You always had those skills. You just never had to use them before. There is a pause. Then Sophia speaks again quietly but clearly. Lauren, I owe you a real apology, not the panicked one from Elena's office. I was horrible to you for years. I treated you like an ATM, and then I got angry when you had feelings about it. I kept telling myself you were being dramatic. But the truth is, I was entitled and cruel. I'm so sorry. This apology feels different from all the others. No fake tears, no excuses. Just a simple and honest admission. What changed your mind, I ask? Having to work for money instead of just asking for it? Realizing how hard it is to save even $100 when you are paying your own bills? Understanding what you sacrificed to help us? And Ethan, he is getting there too. He still thinks you were harsh at first, but he admits we needed to change. I ask another question. How are things between the two of you better? We talk more now that we are not constantly stressed about money. We cook together. Actually cook, not just order takeout. We take walks instead of going shopping. It's nice. For the first time in a long while, I smile when I think about them. I'm glad. Then Sophia hesitates. Lauren, would you like to come to dinner sometime? Nothing fancy. Just homemade spaghetti. And maybe a conversation that is not about money. I think about it for a moment. The old Lauren would say yes, immediately desperate to repair the relationship. But the new Lauren has learned how to protect her boundaries. I'd like that. But let's start with lunch in a public place. Baby steps. Of course, whatever you are comfortable with. After I hang up the phone, I sit quietly for a while, letting my emotions settle. This conversation felt completely different from before. Sophia sounded like an adult, someone who takes responsibility for her actions, not a child making excuses. My phone vibrates again. A message from Victoria Langford. Heard about Sophia's promotion. Thank you for not giving up on her, I reply. Thank you for not bailing her out. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their own choices. Sometimes love means saying no. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to discover who they truly are when no one is there to catch them. I spent 3 years being their safety net. By doing that, I accidentally took away their chance to build their own strength. When I finally removed the net, they learned how to fly. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. And maybe that is the most valuable lesson of all. Outside my window, the sun is setting over the walking path where I joined a senior walking group. Tomorrow I will have lunch with Frank Donovan, a man around 70 years old. He is a new friend from my book club. Last week we laughed together over a silly joke about a classic novel. Then he asked me out to lunch. At 68 years old, I am finally learning what it feels like to be appreciated for who I am, not for what I can provide. And that feeling is worth more than all the money I have ever given away. Thank you for listening to my whole story. If you stayed here from beginning to end, I truly appreciate it. Do not forget to subscribe if this story meant something to you. And feel free to share your own experiences in the comments. Your voice matters, because somewhere out there, someone might need to hear it right now.